700 years have passed since the end of Ys origin, and the aftermath of which changed the fate of the world for centuries. New countries emerged, and the legend of Ys remained only written in legend. The land now called Asteria is a peaceful nation with bustling commerce and growth. The goddess is slumbering, the descendants of the 6 priests charged with keeping the legend alive have been lost to time. Yet, a fortune teller has prophesied of a chosen youth of flaming red hair, who would bring peace to the land of Ys. Evil has begun to resurface in the land of Asteria. The goddesses have awakened from their 700-year slumber, with fleeting memories of the past. Monsters are roaming the land once again, and the great storm wall has suddenly erected around the island's waters. This is where we first meet the red-haired protagonist Adol. A youth determined to investigate the recent misery literally surrounding the island sets off to cross the storm wall by boat, but due to the severity of the storm, the boat is sunk and Adol washes ashore to the small port town of Barbado, where he is rescued by Slav, the head of the town's militia. Slav's father, Dr. Bluto, along with nurse Ayla, help Adol make a complete recovery and inform him of the situation. Adol heads to the town of Menea and meets with fortune teller Sarah, who is actually one of the descendants of the 6 priests, specifically Tova, making Sarah the direct descendant of Unica Tova, one of the protagonists from Ys origin, and informs Adol that he must seek the 6 books of Ys in order to restore peace to the land. This is where it all begins. For the amount of content available to the player in the first entry of the series, it packs a surprising amount of lore. The game itself is really short, but the character interactions and extra tidbits you find along the way shape the world around you in a very natural way. You can feel the people's struggles and everyday issues as you go along the story, and even though it's a small fraction of it, the books of Ys also contain an enormous record of past events. The game is fairly simple in design. There's not much to it considering it's been 30 years since the first release. At the time, it probably was some of the more engaging games you could have on the TurboGrafx CD. Combat is resolved by running up to your enemies, and on collision you'd cause damage, or receive it, depending on the angle you'd approach. The game calls this the bump system, and it pretty much boils down to just that. There's no magic system, no party, nothing besides Adol and his trusty sword and shield. Occasionally, you do have some side items you can pick up along the way, but overall the combat itself is what you'll spend most of the time engaged in doing. It's fun, and it doesn't get stale until the very end, but at that point you're already done with the game. One of the biggest strengths that make this game memorable to so many fans of the series is the soundtrack. Ys 1 has some of the best tracks I've listened in any game, old and new. The series in general keeps this a constant in terms of quality and memorability. The tunes inside the tower especially are very nostalgia heavy, especially if you've played Origin before diving into Ys proper. And it doesn't stop on just the soundtrack. Ys 1 is the start of the partnership with Adol's faithful partner Dogi, who ends up becoming a recurring and very memorable character in the entire series. Every side character and even some NPCs sport more personality in a game this old than most characters in some modern games today. The takeaway from all this is that Ys 1 offers so much more than just confusing dungeon layouts and simplistic combat. The average 5 or so hours you'll spend with it, if you take the time to read and enjoy the world around you, you'll find an amazingly written story of a world so new and full of promise that the flaws are overlooked. The adventures of Adol don't end there. On the contrary, this is just the beginning. After the final battle, Adol is carried by the light of the 6 books of Ys to a new place, and thus ends the tale of the Vanished Omens, to be continued on the 2nd installment of the series, and companion game to the first one, Ancient Ys Vanished, the final chapter. But that's a tale for another time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't think I should give a medal to just the first game, so I'll bundle up the score for both games on the second part of this review series on Ys 1 and 2. Anyways, if you'd like to know more about the franchise in general, and the general timeline of the games, or what to start with, I'd suggest checking out digitalanalyst.com, a fan site that is dedicated to celebrating the 30 years of history of the Ys games and everything about each individual entry in the series. This has been Zeldrak, and I'll see you next time.